Hello friends, welcome to Spiritism for All, and today we continue to study the book Behind the Scenes of Obsession, and today's chapter is the redemptive programming. The book is by the spiritual author of Manoel Philomeno de Miranda, and the psychophonic medium is Divaldo Pereira Franco. During the usual tasks through which contacts were maintained with the discarnate benefactors in the special weekly sessions, we received clarifications and information through which the brothers Saturnino and Ambrosio gave us detailed elucidations about the events that were taking place in the spiritual sphere related to the blessed labors in which we participated, despite our condition of incarnate spirits. That was how we were informed about the details of the fraternal operation with Dr. Theophrastus and Henriette Marie, as well as the preceding facts. Obviously, when we return to the somatic body, the memories of spiritual achievements almost completely disappeared, leaving the evocations as impressions that manifested themselves through dreams, sometimes as painful nightmares, sometimes as dreams of elevated communion with the higher spheres of life. Higher spheres of life. In this regard, the instructors were in charge of activating or curbing our memory centers so that our human journey could take place as normally as possible, without problems that could disturb us in the activities of servants of man's community. The detailed memories would place us between the two worlds, allowing us to ignore the realities of the physical side, providing us with a shift in our attention, which would turn to the experiences and realities of the spiritual sphere. Since Mariana's obsession treatment had started, we received a warning to maintain psychic links with the superior spirituality in order to beware of the snares of less happy spirits who, surprised by the incursions that would occur in their domains, would be invited to aggression to us by all possible means, in an attempt to block the blessed labor now in execution. Considering the high responsibilities that concerned us, we sought to live up to the mentor's expectations, striving to offer at least the share of prayer, optimistic thinking, and a spirit of self-sacrifice, dedicating ourselves to the spiritual mission with a high dose of enthusiasm and faith. On the first occasion, after the interview with the former Huon magician, the benefactor Saturnino elucidated, through the psychophony of the medium Morais, that we would meet again after the night's work was completed, when Brother Glaucus would lead the terrible obsessor, now in a meditation phase, to an interview in our house, in a meeting that was destined to define the future directions of his life. It urged us to exercise and keep mentally fraternal piety, an essential manifestation of legitimate charity which we should take on in order to actively cooperate. On returning home, the expectation of the disobsession reunion disturbed me. making it difficult for me to rest. Praying, however, and feeling of the presence of the elder brothers of the spiritual world recomposed my mental landscape in a mild torpor, and a mild torpor invaded me, facilitating for the vigilant entities my astral projection and my consequent conduction to the headquarters of our house of prayer and love. When we arrived there, the other members that participated in the rescue tasks were already there. Saturnino, always calm and kind, translated into a heartfelt prayer the longings of all present and asked Jesus to be the sublime visitor and conductor of the rescue works that aimed to apply the charity of enlightening consciences clouded by pride and selfishness, these two implacable enemies of the human spirit. The environment, as the benefactor prayed, got saturated with a discreet perfume like a very light lavender carried by a gentle breeze. Petals of diaphanous light began to fall, abundant, and faded when touching by bystanders or the various furniture and objects. Very penetrating vibrations permeated us all, and without our noticing, emotions broke the dikes of vision and flowed in copious tears in the retreat in which we found ourselves. That must be a magnificent meeting. But let's proceed. Turning to our brother Petitinga, Saturnino asked, "Read, my brother, the Book of Life." The venerable friend approached the table from the disobsession room and took a small book, iridescent, with threads of light, in which he saw the highlighted letters, in silvery blue tones, New Testament. Opening it apparently in a random page, overwhelmed by the superior emotionality of the hour, Giuseppe Tinga read the notes of the Apostle Marcos in chapter 9, verses 17 to 29. "Master, I have brought you my son, who is possessed of a mute spirit, and this one, wherever he catches him, cuts him to the ground. He foams, gnashes his teeth, and fades away. I begged your disciples to heal him, and they could not. Jesus said to them, 'O unbelieving generation, how long will you be with you? How long will I suffer? Bring him to me.' So they brought him to Jesus. When he saw Jesus, the spirit immediately convulsed the young man. He fell to the ground and writhed, foaming. Jesus asked his father, 'How long has this happened?' He replied, 'Since his childhood, and has often cast him both into fire and water to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have pity on us and help us.' Jesus said to him, 'If you can, everything is possible to the one who believes.' Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, 'I believe, help my unbelief.' Jesus, seeing a crowd pouring, rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to him, 'Dumb and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and enter him no more.' Screaming and shaking a lot, he left. The boy was left as dead, so that most of the people said, "He is dead." But Jesus, taking him by the hand, lifted him up, and he stood up. After he entered the house, his disciples asked him privately, "How could we not cast him out?" He replied, "This species of spirits can only come out by the force of prayer." Closing the delicate repository of the sayings of the Lord, and inspired and moved, Giuseppe Tinga, after a slight pause, made comments linked in the most excellent Spiritist conceptualization, reliving the Master's deeds, and that moment in which we should, blessed by the mercy of the Rabbi, to summon to peace and repentance a spirit that only by the power of prayer could change. The apostle of the Spiritist message in the lands of the state of Bahia got silent when Brother Glaucus entered the room, accompanied by Dr. Theophrastus and two of his guardians, who, with the permission of the instructors, stayed outside the room by the door. The visiting entity's face was veiled by a singular melancholy. The eyes that used to be bright, translating a strange ferocity, were dull, and, as if bearing an invisible burden, he walked tardily, with characteristics very different from those he had exhibited until a few days ago. Treated with affection and respect by the venerable benefactor, he was invited to sit among us as a special guest. Brother Glaucus, taking the initiative, spoke briefly. Here we try to continue this examination of the problems that concern Henriette Marie and her persecutor, who is now hidden in the precinct of love under the guard of devoted servants of good. We do not ignore that Brother Theophrastus was faced by a painful surprise as the result of the misapplication of time, starting to experience since then the consequences of the spontaneously taken attitudes, knowing that he was linked by deep ties of affection to the sufferer who has not been able to enjoy his company lately. We thought it would be a good idea to take him to where he was, in order to create plans for the future and to stop finally with the machinations of criminality that are happening until now. "But for the moment," replied the Avenger, visibly disturbed, "I will not be able to agree to any commitments that aim to distance me from the walls of my field of action. I am linked to a powerful organization, and although in a position of command, I am in turn commanded." "We insist on elucidating," replied confident and calm the benefactor, "that there is only one leader, Jesus, the sublime King of our lives, to whom we owe the opportune gifts of current evolution and progress in our new condition of travelers searching for light. Surrendering us to his gracious command, no evil force will have the means to reach us, because no shadow, however dense, will succeed in supplanting the most insignificant light, subduing it. We are, however," he replied, "somewhat undecided. 12 dominating minds who are subjected to a team of 10 magistrates who inhabit infernal regions, where the slightest deviations from justice receive long punishments. We constitute the group of 12. In the application of our code, we select criminals who reach, by our hands, the first corrections, after which they are taken to their own prisons in the caves, where they are building the constructions of the city of flagellation. We are connected through a specialized mental process and are often invited in turn to accountability in detailed verbal reports that are inspected by competent technicians and sensitive devices. And he continued, furthermore, my own reasons prevent me from abandoning everything, to let myself be dragged along by morbid sentimentality, denying the happiness in which I enjoy myself, obviously without knowing that what is expected from me. Everything is very easy for me. It will be enough for me to drag Henriette Marie from the carnal dungeon and keep her with me. And you forget, my friend, explained the brother Glaucus, that the disease of our sister, by obsessive constriction, she will escape from your hands because her departure has been hastened, without her being responsible for it. Do you exactly ignore the fluid laws and the tuning processes? Do you forget that every victim rises above his tormentors? Very important here, this information. And Brother Glaucus continued, furthermore, let us consider that we cannot despise the Lord's option to isolate her from your interference by processes that escape our sagacity, but that belong to wisdom. Yes, I don't ignore it, he noted, but the situation that presents itself to me is serious. I love her. I've always loved her. In the impossibility of possessing her, how to deprive myself of her love? Leaving you to be possessed, replied mildly the benefactor. Love is a concession that manifests itself with 1,000 faces. Not being able to be her husband, you will manage to be the loved one in the mother's womb, in the condition of a child of the soul and of the heart. You will enjoy the tenderness of her hands and suck the vital milk from her breast. You will be in the heat of her devotion, and your eyes will linger immersed in the luminosity of the eyes you love. You will exchange the great night of solitude for the long noon of coexistence. You will transfuse every feeling of bitterness into an expression of dependence and faith. You will pour out the vase of hatred, which will become fertilizer for production in the soil of understanding and affection. For a decade of distance, you will receive an endless time of presence and of undying constancy. And the leprosy, he argued, the leprosy with which she seems to be covered, explained the spiritual friend, is a simulacrum disease produced by the constant discharges of her discarnate persecutor. You are not ignorant, friend Theophrastus, what the fluidic forces unleashed under the impact of hatred and the absorption of harmful energies in a long obsessive process achieve. With her mind consumed by the disturbance that she has been imposing herself through constant transgressions of the laws of justice, our sister got synchronized with her executioner and softened by the hypnotic vibrations of her antagonist, began to experience the false impressions of the illness of Hansen. So the leprosy is a fake disease. We see here that the interference of the executioner, the vibrations, the fluidic power of his hypnotic techniques caused in over her false disease that could lead her to a desperate act of killing herself. Continuing here, and brother Glaucus continued, and she, according to her enemy's wish, was thrown into the hospital prison in which she lives, in almost total abandonment, so that the revenge be crowned with a final resolution, which the assassin awaits, the suicide. We are, in fact, informed that such a plan had been worked out by yourself, who attended to the consultation with Henriette's executioner in a show at the amphitheater after hearing him on a previous occasion years ago. What? shouted the unfortunate. So it was me, the hound, who offered to the hunter the clue to the victim's destruction? Guess what? What a drama. How things happen. Let's continue here. Yes, my friend, said the helpful mentor. Therefore, only the divine justice is responsible for the cases of justice. Jesus said, "You judge according to the flesh or appearance. I judge no one," because He knows our yesterday and the prospects of our tomorrow. Every unconscious aggressor falls into the traps of aggression today or later, and giving a new intonation to the voice, which maintained his usual serenity, but which appeared to us with expressions of energy, Brother Glaucus added, under the loving assistance of specialized healing blessers from our sphere, and with the treatment reallocation of her persecutor, Ana Maria will recover psychic and organic strength very quickly. The illness will regress in a miraculous way, and she will get a little relief and hope through the friendly arm of someone who is also linked to her, extending the nuptial alliance towards her. You will, and your companion will emerge soon after in the long way to go through the carnal experience, where everything starts again, reduce and regularize. And my debts, he asked, how will they be charged to me? I cannot ignore the extent of my actions, and I know the consequences they must entail. our mistakes, affirmed Brother Glaucus, today or later come back to us and through the necessary reparation. Postponing the readjustment also means increasing the burdens that time will add to them, imposing on us a higher dose of sacrifice. Furthermore, it's not our presumption to anticipate the future. Surrender it to the Lord will take care of us, opening for us the deposits of His love and enriching us with His multiple blessings. For Him there is neither persecutor nor persecuted, but 6 spirits in different states, walking along different paths towards the infinite good. Very beautiful this. For Him there is neither persecutor nor persecuted, but 6 spirits in different states, walking along different paths toward the infinite good. We do not ignore that evil is only the absence of good, and that, when it arrives, it fades, because there is only one force, that of triumphant love. Those concepts penetrated all of us, especially the amphitheater leader, who was increasingly saddened, more unhappy, not hiding the suffering that freed him from himself, who was a slave to passions for centuries. Gearing up, without the pride of before, Dr. Theophrastus rushed in. But this is a Spiritist house. I am one of the minds in charge of fighting Christian venom, which insists on reappearing in new clothes. We hate these adventurers of the body, who dare to invade our domains, which only belong to the dead. You are mistaken, my friend, replied our brother Glaucus friendly. There are no dead, but alive. Incarnate or discarnate, we are all immortal spirits, transiting in one or another vibration, marching, however, towards immortality. Christianity does not insist on appearing or reappearing. It has never disappeared. Despite the interpolations and disrespects it has suffered through the centuries. Reflecting the thought of Christ, it is man's hope and the bread of our lives. Fighting it is poisoning yourself. To pursue it means to expand its horizons that are lost at the borders of the solar system. Vain folly of ignorance to fight against knowledge, and folly to invest against wisdom. Jesus lives and wins, my friend. It is all useless, and you know it. I don't know, he replied, already shaken, but I feel it. He chases me relentlessly. He won't let me rest. He tortures me in every one I torture. He despairs me in all those over whom I unleash my rage. What has he against me? Or what do you have against him? Replied the benefactor. Jesus is inexhaustible love. He does not persecute. He loves. No torture, renews. Do not despair, feed. But you, my friend, took the position of his adversary and suffers the contingencies of hallucination and procrastination of the moment of surrendering to him in total self-giving. Then don't be afraid anymore. True courage is also manifested when the being recognizes that he is and what he has, retracing the path he wants to follow, gathering strength to refresh his spirit, and like a child, to learn love from its first lessons. I'm afraid, I'm compelled to confess. Fear descends from the guilty conscience. I have been the expression of strength and violence, and I have learned not to trust. Jesus, however, is the expression of love, and his non-violence offers the confidence that magnifies those who follow him in the extension of devotion. I fear because I believe, and believing I suffer. In all the fighting, even hating, I never banished him from my mind. Nor could you. Hate is the love that gone mad. In the early days of the current century, I was summoned to leave France to come here to operate in view of the transformation that was taking place in this country due to the revival of Christian thought, dampened everywhere and revived here by contact with our sphere of life. Our group should be in charge of besieging mediumship and the new crusaders of Christianity, setting up a court of punishment and bringing them to our precincts during their astral projections while asleep, so that the visions of our scenarios and our diverse operations could infuse them fear or seduction, leaving in their memories the seeds of desire, in the cult of sex, of ambition, in the cult of money, or arrogance, in the cult of vanity. In several Spiritist sessions, our emissaries have sought to penetrate with the objective of sowing discord there, multiplying suspicions, radiating bitterness, and spreading backbiting. And when circumstances allow, we maintain commerce by subtle or violent incorporation according to the taste of the levity of the members of the hive. Without a doubt, we have obtained a good harvest, especially in the field of moral aggressions of various kinds, in which the falsely good and apparently honest offer a favorable terrain for all seedlings, which soon thrive exuberantly, multiplying themselves easily. It is evident that our access is not made in all areas, because, alerted, many remain in an attitude of vigilance, preventing us from interfering. In addition, the followers of the Lamb managed to disperse our agents, using very efficient processes. How can I wrap myself in such a house? How will I release myself from the commitments to those I find myself bound to? We listen carefully to you, replied the benefactor, lucid and clear. Although we were not taken by surprise at your report, because we knew your activities, we clarify you that this house has defenses built on many decades of holy achievements, deserving affectionate assistance from the divine plan. Protected from the aggressor forces, it is a code and accommodation open to those who suffer under the direction of Christ. There is no reason to consider commitments other than to the truth. The others cannot be called compromises, but conspiracies of ignorance, devoid of any value for the unfortunate poor purposes they have. Our destination, my friend, is the truth. As Jesus is the way, let us no longer recalcitrate. We were all immersed in the most moving concentration. The verbal duel between imposture and convincing truth clarified our minds, broadening our perceptions around the victory of high purposes and superior designs. At an almost imperceptible signal, Brother Saturnino had left the precinct beforehand, following the guidance of the spiritual benefactor. At that moment, when the silence had become natural, and when the entity was meditating, overcome by an understandable restlessness of the fevered spirit, the guide friend returned, bringing asleep like a child wrapped in a paternal affection, Anna Maria, who was lovingly placed on the white bed, reserved and empty in the room since the beginning of the interview. Seeing her, suddenly, Dr. Theophrastus was seized with an anguished anticipation. The vigilant benefactor soothed him with a gentle gesture, after which he approached the sleeping girl and, touching her temples, awakened her in a friendly and comforting voice. The leper circled her gaze around her, and, duly soothed by the instructor, recognized Dr. Theophrastus. Her eyes looked on a special glow. She stretched her arms, and in the face of the mental acquiescence, the former magus held her close, with immense tenderness, enveloping her in waves of deep affection. "How long I've waited for this moment," alluded the former avenger. So do I, the sufferer replied in tears. "Sorry, I'm moved. Forgive me, Henriette." "Forgive you? Our aching love is greater than anything, and in itself cancels out all old afflictions. It's me who begs you, tell. Help me, and don't abandon me anymore. I am the hope almost dead, and you are the breath of my revival. Do not deny me the crumb of your presence, no matter what. Let us get up from the torpor that annihilates us for a long time, and let us pray to God to protect us from ourselves and to help us starting today. I couldn't bear to live without you anymore. Dream tell, this is a dream. We are in a dream sphere in which you appear to me disfigured and said, why did you take so long? Forgive me, as much as I looked for you, I could never find you again. No, we will never be parted again, ever again. I promise that I will renounce to everything in order to experience the tenderness of your hands and the sweetness of your eyes. Listen, Henriette Marie. What am I going to tell you? Listen carefully. He could not proceed. The convulsive cry unleashed in his soul, and he backed away, defeated, staggering, screaming in a desperate thunder. The loving mentor approached and urged him to balance himself. He spoke to him on the significance of the moment and the few reservations that Anna Maria had recently freed from her antagonist's psychic constriction, and in need of encouragement to accept the new duties of a wife, as soon as her psychic and mental departments, as her physic and mental departments could be rebuilt, with a view of her future life. The opportune word helped the tormented one to recover balance. Getting closer to the girl, in the spirit, Brother Glaucus reported, "Daughter, today begins a new stage in the journey of your eternal spirit. Although the past is not dead, all of it must be forgotten. The construction of tomorrow begins now. Shadows and fears, hurts and recriminations must be overcome, and to them it's necessary to put hope and peace, faith and work in rebuilding the happiness that has taken so long. Often, or almost always, what happens to us is a consequence of what we do. Our hostile roof must undoubtedly have security and stability in order not to collapse over our heads. Long has your pilgrimage been, and long has your time of corrective distress. Jesus, however, who does not want the death of the sinner, but his redemption, gives us all opportunities for a luminous rescue. He took an opportune break. The entity followed the happy words of the benefactor, seeking to imprint them on her soul. After a brief silence, he continued, "Our dream of love, awaited for a long period of time, which has now passed, will come true. Our Theophrastus friend here also needs to restart the experience for his own benefit. Between the two, however, it mediates the impediment of the states in which you remain. While your journey on the carnal body, our friend Theophrastus finds himself freed from the physiological fluids. Face it therefore with the impossibility of a matrimonial communion that life cannot offer you at this moment. We ask that you offer him the organic intimacy so that he can start again on the path as a child of your devotion and affection." Ana Maria, shaken by an unexpected impulse, knelt down and opening her arms stammered, "May the will of God be done." Brother Glaucus, using the expressive occasion, continued, "You, however, daughter, must offer opportunity to another being of love, to another being who loves and suffers, hoping for understanding and pity. It's about Jean Villemin, the unfortunate priest who, in the past, unleashed all these unleashed all these afflictions." "I refuse to help him," replied the girl. "I hate him with all my strength. How could I be a mother to him?" "Hatred, daughter," considered the benefactor, "only disappears on the pyre of the sacrifice of love. It is true that he made you suffer too much. However, your happiness that now begins is, in a way, made possible because it frees you from the bonds of rebellion with which he binds you. Away for treatment, you will feel the benefit of health and peace in return. You will deny him the sublime offer of a fresh start, which the divine mercy in turn is granting to you? Your breast, transformed into a maternal sanctuary, will receive friend and adversary, and you will have them as beloved children in the forge of the home, suffering and loving, helping them reciprocally so that they transform the dwelling rapiers into the plows of the soil of hope, in whose furrows the seeds of peace are deposited. Here we can see why sometimes our children are easily loved or not, because our families are formed by not only by the older friends from the past, but the older enemies too. And I could say, since the type of world we are living in, of proof and expiations, we can expect more adversaries than friends in our families. But let's proceed here. The instructor's voice betrayed the emotion that visited him, as if remembering that the men on earth were all victims of the dissolving passions. He took up the word and emphasized, Jesus, despite our ingratitude, still loves us. When on the cross, however mocked, he was loving, and now, though purposefully ignored by millions of beings, he goes on loving. Let us follow his example, Doctor, and let us transform ourselves in a cell of love, so that our constructions may be based on foundations of security. Ana Maria, in tears, looked at her old affection, which remained stunned and inspired by the superior forces that saturated the room, agreed. If my love can benefit Theo, and my refusal to Jean can be a factor of failure, in honor of the love of all loves, I accept you too as a son, and may God have mercy on us. Brother Glaucus clasped the young woman in a tender embrace, and taking Dr. Theophrastus in the same enveloping gesture, asked the Lord to bless them, congratulating them with the granting of spiritual union. The young woman was taken back to the body at the lazaretto. After some more studies about the new condition of Brother Theophrastus, he approached the door and dismissed the two guards, being agreed that he would stay in that house under the auspices of the instructors, until such time when he would be sent to a preparatory colony for his future reincarnation, because other procedures in the process of disobsession of Mariana would still require his presence. Due to the successful events of that morning, Brother Glaucus, sensitively moved, prayed to Jesus in gratitude, and the work was finished, after which we were returned home. Oh my God, that's a beautiful chapter, don't you think? This book is marvelous, and this chapter was the best of all. Next chapter, the aggressions. Thank you very much for watching us. If you like this video, please leave us your like, share with your friends, leave us your comments, and please subscribe to the channel, so helping us to grow. Thank you very much.